Hi students, coming to the next topic in the subject operating system is inter-process communication. So actually I already explained about this inter-process communication when I am dealing with the computer organization and architecture. So let me give an overview of this inter-process communication in operating system. So actually the concept is the same. The process, whatever the process you are taking, a process, it's nothing but it is a program that has to be executed. So that will be taken if it is the process that are present in a system. So how those process will be communicated to each other, that you call it as a inter-process communication. So within the system. So simply you call it as it is an exchange of data between two or more, you can take two or more separate and independent process, separate and independent process. So that exchange of information between two or more separate independent process, you call it as inter-process communication. Let's suppose if you are taken two process, a process P1 and the process P2. So a communication between these two processes. So suppose within a program or within a system, you're dealing with two processes. One is with the web server and next is the database. So these are the two processes. Web server is one processor and the database is another processor. So some common terms that are used to share. So that is the exchange of data between these two processes, the web server and the database. With the help of these, the data can be exchanged from web processor to database and database to web processor with the help of this inter-process communication. So here we are exchanging of data between these two processes which are separate and these are independent. So the web server is having their own ID and it is having their own IP and the same own address, and whereas for the database is also having their own identification. So these two are the independent process. These are the two independent process, and these two independent process wants to exchange of data. So that technique you call it as a inter-process communication. So this one process and another process, a communication between the within the system, you call it as inter-process communication. Okay, so this operating system provides this operating system, whatever the operating system you are taking, that operating system provides facility for inter-process communication. So this operating systems that provides the facilities for this inter-process communication. This inter-process communication is divided into, inter-process communication may be a unicast, it may be a unicast, or it may be a multicast. Multicast inter-process communication. Okay, the inter-process communication may act as a unicast or it may act as a multicast. So what is this unicast inter-process and what is a multicast inter-process? Actually, unicast means a communication is from one process to single other process. That you call it as a unicast. What it mean? A communication is from one process, means from one process to single other process, that you call it as uniprocess. So here this case is a uniprocessor. So here one process is to single other process. This type of communication you call it as a unicast inter-process communication. So the example for this unicast inter-process communication is, let us take the socket communication. If you connect a socket between two processes, then there is a communication exists between those two processes, that you call it as a unicast. Now coming to the multicast, what do you call this multicast inter-process communication? So communication is from one process to group of process, So here I am talking about one process is going to be communicated with a group of process. This you call it as a multicasting interprocess communication. So the example for the multicast interprocess communication is publish or subscribe message models. So that you call it as a multicast. Publish or subscribe means, suppose what can I take, suppose your broadcast, if you are taking that, so they are publishing, suppose one channel is publishing their channel to subscribe, so the different people are going to subscribe this channel. So this is one channel, suppose whatever the Hathway, whatever you are taking, so that channel is going to be subscribed by different people, 1 2 3 different processor. So this you call it as a multicasting. So a communication is from one process to a group of process, one process to a group of process, you call it as a multicast interprocess communication. So this, just I am talking about this a communication. Suppose this is a process P2 and the P1. If the communication is established between these two processes, then you call it as unicast. Okay, suppose if you are taking one process P1 and this process is going to be communicate with two or more processes. Okay, so then these type of interprocess communication, you call it as a multicast. I hope you understand what exactly the unicast and multicast interprocess communication. It's just a communication between two or more processes. Okay, thank you.